Welcome to the deep dive. If you're here, it means you want the quick, clear, expert path through, well, sometimes complicated source material. And today, we have something pretty special. A listener's really detailed personal gardening notes, all focused on one plant, the Golden Penda, Xanthostemon chrysanthus. It's quite a spectacular, sun-loving thing. Our mission, really, is to sit through these observations, weeks of watching this plant and pull out the critical facts. You know, what you really need to know about its life cycle, how to propagate it, and crucially, what conditions it absolutely demands. We're digging into real-world backyard data here. Okay, let's unpack this. So first up, the life cycle. It always starts at the bloom, right? The notes mention this specific Golden Penda, the one on the backyard balcony, has just finished another blooming cycle. Looks gorgeous, I imagine.
Absolutely. But the notes rightly point out it's not just about the flowers. For this observer, the interesting part was what happens next.
The progression.
Exactly. We get into the practical botany side of things. The source details how, right after the flower fades, you see this little structure developed. It's described as spherical, woody, located right at the bottom of where the flower stem was.
Okay, like a little nub.
Sort of, yeah. Botanically, it's a capsule. Think of it as a woody fruit. That's where the seeds are forming.
Right. And this is key, isn't it? Especially if you're thinking about collecting seeds yourself. There's a specific timeline involved here. It's not instant.
Definitely not. The notes are very clear on this. You've got to watch the color. That's your main cue.
So what does it look like?
Well, the observer documented it starting off quite a vibrant green, and then it takes a significant amount of time. We're talking roughly 2 to 3 months.
2 to 3 months. Wow. For that green capsule to finally darken into a rich, mature, dark brown.
Okay, so that 2 to 3 month window, that's your signal. That's the harvesting schedule, essentially.
Pretty much. Because if you wait too long, well, you run into the exact issue the observer's facing now.
Right.
We'll get to that, though. Okay. But for the problem, let's talk about the potential. What's actually inside that little brown woody thing?
This is where it gets really fascinating, I think. It speaks to the plant's whole reproductive strategy. The notes mention referencing other material, indicating that each single fruit, that one capsule, has the potential to hold somewhere between 100 and 200 tiny seeds.
Whoa, hang on. 100 to 200.
From one flower?
From one flower's resulting fruit, yes.
Yeah.
Think about that volume. A single blooming cycle could yield thousands of potential new plants if you collected from multiple flowers.
That's massive. It really suggests, like you said, a strategy. Just overwhelm the odds with sheer numbers.
Exactly. It's an optimized survival mechanism.
Okay, so this huge potential then leads directly into the challenge, the problem the observer is currently dealing with. Right, here's where it gets really interesting. They're looking at fruits that have already done the whole maturation thing, turned brown, but crucially, they've already opened naturally on the plant. Yes, and not just opened. The notes say they've been sitting there open, exposed to harsh tropical weather for several months. Rain, humidity, the works.
Oh, okay. That sounds less than ideal for tiny seeds.
It really is, and it highlights perfectly why timing that harvest is so important if you want to maximize that huge seed potential.
Because exposure is bad.
Exposure is generally very bad for seed viability, especially over months in wet tropical conditions. Humidity, fungal growth, it all takes a toll. The viability drops, sometimes dramatically.
So the big question hanging over these notes right now is, after all that time, open, exposed, are any of those seeds left inside still viable? Can they still sprout? Is there any resilience there?
And that's the experiment, isn't it? The observer is trying to germinate them now. It's essentially a test of the Golden Penda's natural dormancy, or maybe just its sheer toughness.
So what would it mean if they do sprout?
Well, if even a small percentage germinate after months of exposure, it tells us something really interesting about the species. It suggests an incredible evolutionary backup plan. Maybe that huge number, 100 to 200 seeds, isn't just about overwhelming good conditions, but ensuring that even if things go wrong, like the fruit isn't collected or the weather is bad, some seeds might still make it. A buffer.
Right, a built-in just-in-case factor because of the sheer volume.
Precisely.
Okay, so for you listening, the takeaway seems pretty direct. If you want the best chance, high germination rates.
Harvest the fruit when it's dark brown, but before it splits open naturally. That's the ideal window.
But, and this is the hopeful part from these notes, if you miss that window.
It seems like it's still absolutely worth giving it a shot. Try germinating what's left, because the plant's strategy might just be aggressive enough to leave a few viable seeds behind, even after all that time. Don't just toss them out.
Good advice. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. from trying to start new plants to keeping existing ones happy. The notes give us a really neat comparison here, a sort of controlled experiment.
Yeah, this part is great for understanding what the plant really needs day to day. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the observer basically set up a test. We have the main plant, the successful one, blooming away on the backyard balcony,
The thriving one.
the thriving one, and then there's a comparison plant, a red-flowered variety apparently that was deliberately moved to the front yard. The goal was specifically to see how it did in that different microclimate.
Okay, so backyard versus front yard.
Yeah.
And how did the front yard plant do?
Not so well. The notes are pretty blunt, actually. It just says it hasn't grown as well.
It hasn't grown as well.
Surviving maybe, but definitely not thriving like the one in the back.
Exactly. Which immediately makes you ask, right, what's the difference? Backyard versus front yard? What's the key variable?
Could be soil, could be water.
Could be, but the notes strongly point towards the usual suspect for big tropical bloomers like this. Sunlight. Light exposure.
And do the notes specify the conditions for the successful plant? The one on the balcony?
They do. And it's quite specific. It's not just a sunny spot. No. What does it say?
The thriving Golden Penda receives full sunlight exposure for a minimum of 6 to 8 hours every day.
6 to 8 hours.
Yeah.
Minimum. Okay, that's a serious amount of sun.
That's the benchmark established by these observations. Full, direct sun from most of the day. So, by deduction, the struggling plant in the front yard, it must be getting less than that.
Falling short of that critical 6 to 8 hour mark.
Almost certainly, this plant seems to be a real sun worshiper. It needs that massive solar energy input to fuel its growth and all those flowers and presumably all those seeds we talked about.
So the difference between a plant that's flourishing and one that's just sitting there could literally be a few feet of placement, or maybe catching that extra hour of afternoon sun.
Absolutely. Microclimates can be surprisingly varied even in the same yard.
And the observer's conclusion from this comparison, what's the recommendation?
Well, the notes imply the obvious fix, if the front yard isn't working and the backyard is.
Move the struggling plant to the backyard.
Exactly. Get it into that spot where it can hit the optimal 6 to 8 hours of daily sun. It really confirms that for Golden Penda, light isn't just important, it might be the most critical factor. More critical, perhaps, than slight differences in soil or watering between the front and backyards.
6 to 8 hours of full sun. Got it. That's a non-negotiable. Okay, so the plant needs to be out in the open, soaking up all that energy. But being exposed like that often comes with a downside, right? Pests.
Usually, yes. Plants in full sun can be more visible or accessible to certain critters.
And the notes do mention a pest issue. Interestingly, only one specific type.
Yeah, it wasn't a whole list of problems like scale or aphids or mites, which you might expect sometimes.
Nope, just grasshoppers.
Just grasshoppers. And the observer notes that the Golden Penda leaves seem particularly attractive to them.
Particularly attractive, so the grasshoppers really go for this plant.
It suggests there might be something specific about the leaves. The taste, the texture, maybe the chemistry that makes them a preferred food source for local grasshoppers.
Interesting. And is it random munching or is there a pattern?
Oh, there's a definite pattern noted. The observation confirms the grasshoppers spend quite a bit of time munching specifically on the lower leaves.
The lower ones. Not the new growth at the top.
Apparently not, or at least not primarily. The focus seems to be on the base of the plant.
Why do you think that is? The lower leaves.
Well, it could be a couple of things. Simple accessibility, maybe. They're just easier for a grasshopper on the ground or hopping nearby to reach. Or perhaps the older, lower leaves are softer or have a different nutritional profile compared to the tougher, newer leaves higher up. Hard to say for sure without more investigation.
Okay. And the notes say this is ongoing.
Yeah, the observer mentions planning a future post with more details, so it sounds like something they're keeping an eye on. But for now, the key takeaway is, if you grow Golden Penda, expect grasshoppers.
And check the bottom leaves regularly.
Good practice, definitely.
Okay, excellent. Let's pull all this together now. We've covered blooming, seeds, sun, pests. What are the absolute core practical takeaways for someone listening who might be growing this plant or thinking about it?
We've nailed down 3 main things from these notes, I think. First, that fruit maturation timeline. Green to dark brown takes about 2 to 3 months.
Right, that's your harvest window cue.
Second, the seed potential is just huge. 100 to 200 seeds per fruit. Amazing volume.
Underscores its reproductive drive.
And third, the big one, sunlight. It's not negotiable. You need a minimum of 6 to 8 hours of full direct sun daily for this plant to really thrive.
That seems to be the absolute key requirement identified here.
Hmm.
So what does this all mean when you put it together? Well, it paints a picture of a species that's really evolved for high-energy environments, doesn't it?
Oh, so.
The Golden Penda actively needs those super sunny exposed spots to get that 6 to 8 hours of intense light. It seeks them out, essentially.
Those very same exposed, open locations come with risks, and these notes highlight one specific risk: becoming a very obvious and attractive target for grasshoppers, particularly attacking the easily accessible lower leaves.
Ah, okay. So the need for sun puts it right in the line of fire for pests at its base.
Seems like it could be a direct consequence.
Right. And that actually leads to a really interesting final thought, something for you, the listener, to maybe mull over. Given this plant's absolute demand for intense sunlight, forcing it out into the open, and the consistent observation here of grasshoppers hitting those lower leaves, does this point to a kind of evolutionary trade-off?
A trade-off.
Yeah. Is the plant basically accepting the high risk of pest attacks on its lower parts as the necessary price for getting the massive solar energy it needs at the top to grow and reproduce so prolifically?
Mm.
Is that massive energy gain worth the constant vulnerability at its base?
That's a fascinating question. The cost of doing business in full sun, perhaps? Trading off base-level defense for top-level energy gain.
Exactly. It gives you a different way to think about why certain plants get certain pests in certain locations, right? It might be directly linked to the most fundamental needs, like sunlight. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into these fantastic backyard notes on the Golden Penda. We really hope these insights help you get the most out of your own gardening.